Peace, peace, peace. So I'm out on a walk with my princess, and I was getting like this clarity. Peace and greetings to all. I was getting this clarity on like the acceptance. Acceptance is a huge topic that's ignored. But something came to me. Spirit was like, the Americas, or America, whatever you want to call it, suffers from multiple personality disorder. How is that? I mean, when you're talking about a nation or a people who prides themselves on creating this narrative of being one thing, and then the hypocrisy. Did I say that? Yeah. Being a hypocrite in that. How even most of America, millions, hundreds of millions, ever many people are afraid to acknowledge and take into account that they too suffer from multiple personality disorders. So, yeah, I know. We're gonna go there in a little bit, okay? Because that one's closed. But coming to that whole self-awareness, this is what I realized. And most, probably some that will resonate with this, is that the compassion that I've developed with myself just brings me to the awareness of the ignorance truly is bliss, because there's no self-awareness around the fact of having grown up in a nation or environment that really gives off this impression of freedom, when it's the opposite. Being sovereign and being liberated is one thing, but what is really free? Do we not really pay attention to that? What is the land of the free if the governmental structures or the places that have developed this narrative, how do they develop it? Through bullying? Through narcissism in any way? Through a way of emotionally manipulating its people into believing that this is the land that you can really fulfill your dreams? All the while telling them like, yeah, everything's great, but in reality, when someone has to portray or boast about their status, you can relate this to people, you can relate this to life, you can relate this to the nations. They've abandoned their people, all the while say that they support them in every way. Veterans, schools, kids, the youth, most importantly, giving them this false illusion of power, that they're the most powerful nation in the world. And in reality, they're the weakest. They're the most vulnerable. Even though they don't want to say it or portray it or be honest with themselves, they're the most vulnerable. And the reason being they're the most vulnerable is because it's not about a certain people. It's not a certain about elite or whatever it is that we keep or giving our power to something that's external. In reality, the power has always been the people. It's just the narrative that people have been consumed by, the programming, the accepting that programming, the accepting the dysfunction, the accepting the confusion, living in delusion that nothing truly has been free. And now that the veil has always been lifted, the same way that this nation has bullied other people and abandoned them in their false empowerment or false hopes of helping, these countries are now going to abandon America. That's just what's been revealed, and that's what you're going to see. The nations are abandoning giving exactly what America was given to them. And this is through the process of whatever you want to call world leaders, these hidden families or certain people that you really don't see. And you don't ever ask yourself the question of why do you give so much power to something you never seen or never witnessed? Why are you so supportive of a nation when you know the reality in the actuality of what they have built and what they're running from? And now that I was telling my partner, a lie don't care who it tells, but eventually those lies or dishonesty catches up with you. So the same way in your life right now that you're coming to the self-realization how much you have been lied to, or foundations that you built with people, family, associates, whatever, you are also contractually in an agreement with the so-called land karmically that you were on. And say, karma isn't just developed between you and a person. It's also karma upon the land that has to be clear. So the mental illness is the fact of, like they say in the AAA meeting or whatever, the first step to recovery is acceptance, is accountability. So we're easily pointing and call people what they call them conspiracy theorists, or calling people out just because they don't want to conform and be an illusion of control. We're gonna see who's in control here. Y'all about to see who's really empowered and who is about to be disempowered. See, there are certain of us who have, once you come into that self-realization and realize that the world just really doesn't have awareness of self. And that's meaning that, yes, things happen to us, but what about the self-awareness of things happening for us? See, the energy has been at the point in time in humanity was so directed towards a low vibrational state, no self-awareness basically of how our role was just as important. And I was taking a walk the night before and this came to me. It's like the poison in the cure, or it's like the motherboard of a computer, the virus. The virus is needed just as well as the cure or the remedy. I say the virus and the remedy, just as well as the poison and the cure. See, to someone who's operating low vibrationally, or to someone who doesn't have self-awareness or doesn't want to take into account, what they do, how they do it, blaming others, victimization, there you have what could be someone who can be poisonous to your environment. But at the same time, the self-awareness realizes that, this person also actually reflects the cure, but you are the cure. You're the cure to that poison, or you're and see, it can be on both ends of the spectrum. It can be seen differently. If you want to use certain figures, we all have been a Judas in a way, or we all have also operated as, certain characters, religious characters, And in that, and I'm just speaking symbolically, I can really reference to the fact of even certain characters that you see that are praised or put on this pedestal. And I just question sometimes how are we and how don't we correlate or connect the dots and reflect that back to our own life if we are supposed to walk, be, and operate as such. Why is there so much of this disconnect between certain figures? Why aren't there, I don't know why this is coming to me right now, as much as there is this masculine figure of a person that everyone wants to praise in a way or give gratitude or whatever it is, have you ever asked yourself, women, why aren't there matriarchal figures that, which there are more of, that a society should honor? See, a lot of things, when you hear things spoken about the divine feminine and masculine, this is this is the divine mother responding or stepping in an energy aspect spiritually. And this is not so much of a gender aspect. This is an energetic thing, which I'm speaking of. But it's the questioning around the self-awareness of why aren't the balancing of things, why aren't there a more matriarchal figure that gears towards honoring that which is feminine and masculine. But what I mean, it's not about a gender. It's about, that's what's being restored is where I'm getting at. You know, honoring the fact of how women have persevered and gotten through some of the things that is so magical and miraculous that even I, as, you know, a vessel, but sometimes just knowing what certain women that have expressed to me so much of what they have gotten through, that their story need to be honored. And in the oneness of that, not just individually they need to be celebrated, but that celebrates the matriarchal that's being restored. And see, there's more I'm gonna talk about on this to along down the lines where the justice, the divine justice coming upon the nation, is that they all have taken a part in the fact of devaluing what the woman is and how she matriarchally has been the foundation for every nation. Also, the destruction of it too, both men and women. So again, this goes back to the virus and the cure. When you're talking about the motherboard of the computer, the virus is needed. If you need to update something and clear it out, there has to be something that comes in to cleanse it. So this is me speaking about, again, how the accountability comes in, how, yes, mothers, daughters, you know, those who are aware or consciously or whatever you want to say, that has been a role. You have played a role just as well as we as men have played a role, whether we were unconscious of it or not, whether we were self-aware of it or not. Now it's about taking up what we know, what we've experienced, and the wisdom in the wound, the inner wounds. Yes, it's been made very apparent to the world that we all have outer wounds, that we all have skeletons in the closet. But now it's about the wisdom. And that's what you're going to see in the world being displayed, on full display. Those that are not going to partake, which they still are a part of it, partake in the celebrating of how and honoring how much the matriarchal has contribute to everything we have experienced, but also how patriarchally, you know, how it has had its role or hand in things as such. So again, the partaking in this is that now we're able to address the wounds, and now we can celebrate the scars. Not only can we celebrate the scars, but now we can reflect and review the scars, the wisdom in the scars, and now to see how we can be a bridge to the youth, to those that come after us. It's not about convincing no one. Those days are over about convincing anyone, because the saying goes, the damage has already been done. There's no undoing what has already been done. You cannot, I don't know who needs to hear this. You cannot undo a wound. You cannot undo what's been written. You cannot, we cannot undo a scar. The damage has been done. That's what I need to share with you all. You know, you have, and what I mean by inside, the damage has been done. Your inner wounds is what I'm speaking about. The damage has been done. Now it's about partaking, accepting what has been done. Okay, Aries, I hear you. Accepting what has been done, and now find a solution in your own woundings and or what you've experienced. Because truthfully, until you assess it, no one else is truthfully going to come along and, well, people will help. Let me make that clear. People can help, but they're going to help to the best of their abilities. And that's just where we are. They're going to help. Aries, go. You in? Anywho, just cat. But we can only help to the best of our own. The saying goes, someone can only meet you to the depths of where you met yourself. And so it's kind of like a little brief synopsis or whatever it is that that I wanted to share. So again, it's really that what I've spoken about earlier, that we all have been affected in some type of way. So connect until you find the solution with yourself. That's the only way others will align with that. We're on our journey now. Is that the knowledge is knowing. That's the first thing. And then the wisdom, applying it, seeing the fact, okay, this has happened. But how long will I repeat it? See, there's no wisdom there if we don't acknowledge the fact that, how are we going to assess it now that we've seen it? So that's the beauty in it now. Make sure this cat don't bother her. Go in there. So again, that's the solution that I'm speaking about. This isn't about changing people. The solution comes with the acceptance of the inner wound. And the inner is a reflection of the outer. So what we've seen outwardly is what we are trying to change, what we need to change. What haven't we accepted? What haven't we forgiven? Where in our life haven't we forgiven ourselves for what has happened to us? I feel like that's one of the most challenging things, is that forgiveness also is a constant thing, because that comes with acceptance. And what I mean forgiving ourselves is like forgiving yourself for what you went through and how long you kept the narrative going. So that was one of the most challenging things for me, is that being so quick to forgive others for the damage that was done. But truthfully, I feel the healing really happens when you forgive yourself and you see within you the inner woundings. Because if I'm forgiving them and forgetting about the fact of, well, what about me? And the first action is just automatically going to help others before I help myself, then that wound technically is still open. That inner wound hasn't really yet healed. That inner wound is still something that, I, through the suppressing, through certain things, haven't really distancing self, or whatever, or, going in solitude? How can I really say I really worked through something or got through it if I haven't really sat with the emotions? See, this is what's happening in humanity and globally. You have to realize we as a nation of people and nation of people, or people haven't really sat with what we've experienced. We've talked about it. Yes, that's different. That's really different. But how many of us have talked about to others, not people that look like us, but really talk about to others without devaluing that person or castrating them or, criticizing them in any way about your own pain? And to each his own. Tell me, it comes up in so many ways, but I mean, like, really sat down with someone that doesn't look like you, really be in an uncomfortable environment, and really sit down and talk about the fact of addressing certain things like self-hatred, or some people like to call racism, or what I like to call a self-hatred of self. A lot of inner dialogue, or a lot of their inner image. And again, you're talking about a society. These structures, worldly, have preyed on all of our woundings throughout the world. From the system of monetary system, when you're talking about so many things in connection to that, exploiting women, them exploiting themselves for money. And I don't just mean like someone going out there prostitute. You still could be pimped and prostituted by the system, exploiting yourself in a way where it's devaluing you and not really acknowledging your value, your sentimental value, or what you feel you're worth, not what somebody else tell you you're worth. Exploiting you in ways to where wanting someone to feel like, oh, I got to make this much, I got to do this. And that's going to be a whole nother video. Like, I really can't do this now, but I want to do another video on that, because that's an amazing topic that I want to speak about. Because again, that this is so centered around value, internal value, inner image, self-esteem, self-confidence. All of this is centered around self, because we've been so driven. We've been allowing others to drive our car. There hasn't been self-awareness. There's been other awareness, like other people's opinions. These environments, places haven't taught or still are not teaching us about self-awareness. That's why, again, it goes back to the virus or the poison. We know what a system or environments or things that have poisoned us, but at the same time, the self-awareness is like, there's a transit, those of you that do study astrology, Chiron, the wounded healer, or some may call it Anubis, is it just went direct. And those of you that don't know about this, is who don't know about your natal chart or Vedic and tropical, there's so many things with that, but just the astrology in itself, the Chiron, and this is more on the spiritual soul level, and just the things that I've been researching and come across in correlation and connecting to, like, myself and partnerships and the development of childhood development and developing the relationship with myself and or other people. Your relationship you also develop, is it just with self? We develop a relationship, whether you know it unconsciously or not. You develop an emotional relationship with your career, your status. I mean, meaning like your whatever you do in your work life or whatever. I do not like that word, but in your day-to-day routine. And in that, again, whether relationships with people, co-workers, societally, governmentally, whatever it is that you're doing, whether you know it or not, consciously and subconsciously develop some type of emotional resonance or, connection to these things. Mental connection, spiritual, and physical. All of that connects and correlates to the fact of how it is you show up, what it is your self-identity is, and how you also develop a false identity. And that means like not being true to you. So that can no longer be overlooked because again, through these certain transits, when you talk about astrology or, the studying of the stars, however you want to see it, this is something that has always been ancient. Cardology, so forth, and other things. These are things that have always been. These are natural abilities and gifts that people see that automatically, again, being that society or humanity, the wolves have been put over their head, or now we're in the Aquarian age. There was a time where the spell or the delusion humanity was under, they were not aware of the fact of all these things spiritually exist, connected to what they know as the material plane or the material aspect of things, or physical, whatever you want to call it. This has always been, your seers, what you want to call them, your sorcerers, your mediums, and, so forth. It's just the awareness around how at a time, a sensitive moment as such, and or before this grand or global awakening, which was already written, that was just how everything was divinely ordained or orchestrated to bring forth balance. So in that, again, we had to have the acceptance is this, and this is how we're going to evolve inwardly and outwardly. And for those that are going to be left behind, that's just a split right now. It's just what it is. Everyone cannot go. It's just the fact of evolving. This has always been. This has always been talked about. It's just the programming was so heavy. Our childhood wounds were preyed on so heavily when we were young. So humanity in itself has been in a wounded state. Our mothers, our daughters, fathers, sons, everybody were affected and been in a wounded state. That's all that we could see as humanity. Because the only solution or the illusion of solutions we had was coming from the hands of the wicked, was coming from the hands of the deceitful, was coming from the poison. More poison was being fed to us. So when we were trying to find the solution, for a lot of us, there was no self-awareness on what the solution was, because we thought, because of how society was taught so much to rely on others rather than self, and seeing the balance of serving self and then being selfless and serving others has always been the purpose, has always been the mission. This is what the Aquarian age is about. And also, there's more stuff, Aquarius is opposite Leo, those that know. Leo is more self-centered, on the stage, all about them. See, now that the tables is turned, that's why you're going to see the dismantling of things as such. These, and you can correlate this with people, places, environments, whatever. If the opposite of Aquarius is Leo, then you're talking about a more humanitarianism approach or service of others, and the oneness of humanity being established right now. These are the seeds that are being planted. So you don't have to, but the dismantling of the certain governmental structures, certain people, yada, 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 that again, people automatically look past, but in all of that may not look like it was changing on the physical surface, has already happened spiritually. A lot of things are now echoing into the physical plane or the material plane. So that too connects to your own journey. You have already been breaking generational curses prior to even your arrival. Those that came before you ancestrally were already, before they transitioned, were already in the process of setting or being a blueprint before your arrival. How beautiful is that? It's just not documented, but in a DNA sense, spiritually, it's always been within you. It's always been within us. So again, being that we're in an Aquarian age, you're seeing a dismantle of those for self, like in a sense of like the selfishness in a way of like how, um, if you want to look at like celebrities or the vocal point just being particularly on one individual and all the energy, all the ciphering and the energy and all things going towards a certain nation. And so now what? You're seeing globally, not just on the in the place where you are individually, but you're seeing it collectively play out. Who's really for who's been giving off this delusion, who's been giving off this false narrative or this false identity. Look at the nation, people, pay attention. Who's been giving off that they are for humanity and for people and for the other nations? Who's been giving that? Who's been giving that? And in reality, it's like a narcissism. You recognize it. You recognize the fact of now it's like I wrote a poem about this. It talks about how the wolves in sheep's clothing. It seems like truthfully, the whole time you thinking the enemy is in another nation or somewhere else, and you've been behind enemy lines the whole time, being divinely protected, literally behind enemy lines. So you're talking about again a nation and or people or environments to where they've been given off this false illusion of empowerment, and truthfully, behind the scenes, they've been disempowering other people, going to abusing their power. And this is spiritually, this is governmentally, this is all foundation. They're all corrupted, all corrupted. So in that, now you're seeing a desperate measure now. People running, they're hiding behind their pride, and the pride comes before the fall. The warning was already issued by Trump. It's certain people, again, symbolically, they represent things. He was just a warning. I tell people, if this man, outside of what, again, I'm not going to get into depths about how and, what people do outside. That's none of my business. It's the fact of those with eyes who see, or those who are self-aware of what is happening and unfolding right now is divinely orchestrated. So it's like when he made a statement saying, and I believe I can quote it similar, but when he says, "Make America great again," it was telling you that there was nothing great about it before. I don't know. It's somebody was saying how America has been run through, and the symbolism of that is like that of a prostitute, or that of someone who's been given off this. And what I mean by that, I'm gonna break this term down. It's like when you look at it from a perspective of resources, the land, Gaia, however you use the term. The promised land, or the land of the milk and honey, some may say, it's been ran through. Literally, this is like a woman. This is or some may call it Mother Earth or daughter. It's the fact of how they both connect, mother and daughter, but how the fact of the resources have been drained. And so you're talking about in the spiritual and energetic sense of how if you raping a land and discarding it of all its resources, that happens energetically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Then you're talking about a people on that land that's also happening to them. They also have been the impurities that have ran rapid through this land has to be purified. So you're talking about a place or an environment and or other nations who know that they had their hand in this, and now they do this, and all of a sudden they want to pull away. These leaders, again, a lot of things, all of a sudden now they want to pull away, and in reality, none of them can escape the fact of, it's just like energetically, we create karma with people. these other nations have also spiritually have contractual agreements. You know, they also, and karma comes to them. Karma just don't just skip over them. Karma don't miss nobody. It ain't just with us. These things are happening from, it's like as above, so below, in a sense of like the highest of high, the lowest of lows. And that's going to expose things. It's like everything that was done in the dark comes to the light. It's like right now, the Most High, the Divine, is literally shining the light. It's like a flashlight over everything. Over everything. And so from the identity, what's been hitting about a true people, who they really are, from the resources, from a lot of things that have been hidden that are no longer hidden. For, and it goes so much deeper. But again, whether people consciously knew it, they knew intentionally and didn't care about the repercussions or consequences. But eventually, all things come full circle. So there was something else I wanted to share. So yeah, again, if it's happening, you can best believe there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that, like what they said, the revolution won't be televised. Absolutely not. Because it's too much for even humanity or people to even fathom the fact of what has happened upon the lands. And I keep telling people, you do not want to be here. I'm going to speak for myself, but you don't want to experience, really, like what really has been going on. And so with that being said, it just kind of like is what it is right now. I really just had to share that with y'all. I don't know. Like I really had to say that even when I was on a walk, because there's just so much unfolding to where I tell people, just get your popcorn ready, because it's going to be truly amazing. I'm going to come back with something that's going to be more valuable, so get your popcorn ready for that. But it's really about the wisdom in, we all know we have been affected in some way. And you're going to have people who choose to stay in the dark or not willing to evolve and change. And with that, that's the acceptance. The acceptance had to be more on your part, to where you accepting that the inner wound is more important than the external acceptance or validations or even people seeing where you are. And then meeting people who understand, comprehend, overstand where you are from more of a soul level, from more of a, internal level. So yeah, that's just my little spiel for today. Y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.